Hello, and welcome to the next episode of Two Girls Talk Transit. Today we're reviewing the astrology from July 6th through July 12th, 2025. And we're your host. I'm Maddie.
And I'm Kaylee.
And welcome back. So we have Venus and Gemini starting off our week on the 6th of Sunday, I believe. And that is when she kind of started that on Saturday when she was making the sextile to Saturn. But on the 6th on Sunday, Venus and Gemini is making that sextile to Neptune now in Aries. Softer aspects to build up, but we are, really starting to feel the Saturn Neptune conjunction in Aries. And I think Venus is like we talked about a little bit last week, helping us make those structures or helping us take action in a new way, or maybe generating ideas for the structures that we want to build and the big ideas, which is often Neptune, like the really big dream or the really big promise in our heart. Venus sextiling Neptune, though, this day, I don't know, that's usually a day I like to like take off and like just be more escapist and like, out in my own other world than I would like want to actually be working, which I think is hard with the Saturn Neptune conjunction.
Yeah, right. Like Saturn doesn't really want you to take a break, but it's like Neptune wants you to consistently take a break. So it's like two like
Right.
conflictual energies. Yeah. Um, I mean, I think this is sweet. It's good that it like lies on a Sunday and not a Monday so that we like
Right.
if you want to take a break, like go for it. It's not like unless you've scheduled yourself to work on a Sunday, it's not like you probably have work obligations. Um,
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that part will be good. Venus and Gemini is going to be super social, so I think it could be like it would be like a cute like picnic date kind of day, or like, spending time. I think like Neptune is symbolic of water, so like spending time
Hmm.
around water or doing like water sports or something like that could be really nice. And with people, just enjoying each other's company. I think it's such a like a sweet little day.
Yeah, it's an interesting dichotomy because like Saturn is like the really heavy reality and the like really heavy issues and problems and things that are going on in our lives. And then Neptune is like the dreams and the idealistic. So it's like you're constantly with these two so close together. And then when we have these planets make these aspects to both of these, you're constantly bouncing back and forth from it. Like, oh my God, this is my reality and I need to work really hard because I want to change it and I can't live like this. But also, maybe I can rest and take a break and just create and trust that the universe will take care of this, you
Yeah, I mean,
know?
I feel that like constantly right now, so I think that's like
Right.
really well said. Yeah. But like in general then this day would be like the day where you're like, "Oh, I can take a break." But then, after that you might be
Yeah.
like, "Never mind."
Well, it's like with the timing of it, the sextile Saturn more on Saturday. So like that may be the day where you like go hard and get work done and like structure and then you take that break on the Sunday, at least it's not all on the same day. But yeah, it's sort of this like flirting with the edge of burnout consistently and
Oh
then like crashing
gosh.
out.
Yeah, that's me every day now, so I get that. But
Right.
yeah, separately, although like separately too, I think this would be a good like vision board day also, like if you want to like create some type of um like visual representation of what you want your ideal life to look like. Neptune also functions really well with pictures.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this day too could be like
Imagery.
yeah, to like use some type of imagery to like get things together. Um yeah, I think
Well,
vision board is usually done like at the t change of a new year, but if you want to refresh it, today could be a good day to do it.
yeah, or just any sort of like re-tapping into that space. Um, it is interesting the moon is opposite Uranus though this day.
Hmm. Yeah, it is. It is, isn't it? So there will be some, while we do have that like break, if the moon is opposite Uranus, we probably will be feeling like underneath, like a little bit emotionally unrested. Um,
Yeah.
like something's a little bit off, or like, that maybe the conscious part of us realizes like, okay, I need to take a break and like I need to chill. Like I can't be like constantly grinding. But there's just that emotional component that's like, but if I don't do this, like maybe this is going to happen or it's not going to come together the way that I want it to be, or, it's kind of that like anxious undertone.
Well, also, we are also coming off of the Venus-Uranus conjunction. That was last week on the 4th.
Mm-hmm.
And so this may sort of be a reiteration of it, or like realizing what values you're letting go of or changing, and your like emotional attachments to those values as well, like having to let them
Mm-hmm.
go. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Because everything is kind of like really emotional in nature. The only reason
Right.
that we like hoard stuff and like buy new things and like, you know, have like these materialistic values is because we want it to make us feel a certain way. So, having that moon aspect there, like you said, it might be like realizing how those attachments emotionally affect us.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Mhm.
then there's the Neptune is like this spiritual component of like letting it all go and being like, oh yeah, I don't need it. Everything is impermanent.
Right, right. Yeah, I know. I had this client today and he was talking about like um he was like I want to do drugs, but I also like really want to like learn all about religion. And I was like
Plus
I
Neptune.
I know. I was like I feel like you're being heavily influenced by Neptune right now. It was so
I
funny.
mean, those two are, it's so wild. They're like so different, but they also are one of the same because it's just this outer world connection, and yeah,
Yeah, it's like that you want a connection to something like greater and divine and like a higher purposeful energy.
right.
Yeah.
So,
So that's that.
mhm.
Venus will continue. It's actually on the same day. We're
Yeah,
having the trine to Pluto in Aquarius.
right.
Yeah, so Venus is mingling with the outer planets here, and having that that extra little conversation with Pluto here, since it's a trine, I think it will be like a little bit more of like, deeper realizations, help you like create those goals that maybe you want, those like higher ideals, like you're realizing maybe what deeper parts of yourself want a specific thing. Um, I think Pluto energy, like sometimes when we come into contact with it, it like unveils or uncovers something that we can't normally see, something that like exists in that like subconscious space. So I think there will be like a bit of like an uncovering as it comes to what we value or what we idealize or what we want to essentially create in some kind of dream reality.
Yeah, there's a lot going on with our values.
Mm-hmm.
Like all these outer planets in communion with one another. And then Venus is here interacting with all of them, conjuncting Uranus, disrupting your values or shaking them up or being like kind of lost from them. And then, maybe reimagining them. And there's like, I don't know, this intense pull with them as well. There's just so much going on. Like, about what is important, like your relationships. What relationships do you value? Is that actually something that you want to continue? Or like, is this goal? Like, I sometimes feel like Venus is the things that we really want to attract in our life. Like, manifestation is very Venetian, I feel.
Mm-hmm.
And like, Jupiter too, but like very Venetian in some way. And because it's often like a
A
desire that's just
receptive
yours.
energy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a receptive like desire that's yours. And so I do really wonder, especially with the moon again opposite Uranus here and sort of kind of interacting with all of this going on at once, like if we are kind of really experiencing, within ourselves, like something that's really shifting about what is important for us to continue and what is not. And it's like part of this outer world play. So it's like connected to higher levels of things. So I don't know. I just feel like wherever Venus rules, like you want to look to Taurus and Libra, right? For the most part in your houses. You also want to look to Gemini house, but you really want to look to Taurus and Libra too, and like what is represented by Venus in those areas of your life, and how are you changing your relationship with them? And like, as I do think there's going to be a significant change, like I've been really struggling in my career, and that's where Venus and Uranus is in Taurus for my career, my at least my like my overarching career identity, you know?
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
I do wonder if like a lot is going to be changing around that space this weekend. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, I could definitely see that. Like Venus for me is my body, a
Hmm.
lot to do with my body, and I could definitely see like some conversations like with myself coming up about that, about like, you know, what do I feel like I need to look like, or like what is my
Right.
ideal form or whatever, you know, like we all have like some kind of body
Yeah, we
goal.
have some sort of vision of
Yeah.
ourselves of how we want to be. Yeah.
Right, right. So I could definitely see like some conversations coming up with that. But yeah, you definitely made a really good point. You know, as Venus is moving through Gemini, we are gathering details, we're gathering information about Venus. You know, Gemini like gathers all this information. So there definitely is like this conversation that's happening about like the Venus ruled areas in our chart. So yeah, that'd be definitely something to look into. Look into your personal chart on a deeper level to see, you know, what's happening there.
Yeah, for sure. And it ties in to our next aspect then, which is the big one for this week, is Uranus enters Gemini on Monday, then the 7th.
Yeah.
And Kaylee and I both did a deep dive, so I'm gonna go through my notes and then Kaylee will do hers. But
Yeah,
um
go for it.
I'm not gonna lecture too long on it, but I do think like, Uranus and Gemini was the last key outer planet movement that we had for this year, and it is probably, I would argue, one of the more significant ones, especially for the United States. So obviously Kaylee and I are in the US, and we're gonna center our focus a little bit more on that.
Actually, yeah, I want to pull up the United States chart so we can see it at the
Yeah, go
same
for it.
time. Yeah, I think it would
Yeah.
be helpful. Go ahead though, keep talking. Yep.
Yeah, so it's just that, in the United States birth chart, the Sibley chart, there are a few variations of birth charts used for the United States, but I think a lot of astrologers have kind of agreed on the Sibley chart, which is a Sagittarius rising chart. And that puts Uranus in Gemini in our seventh house with Mars. And when I was going through it, I really noticed that every time Uranus returned to Gemini, which is our Uranus return, it activates that Mars, which means we've always been involved in a war. Every
Mm-hmm.
time Uranus has entered Gemini, we have gotten ourselves involved in a major conflict. And this Uranus takes 84 years to move throughout the entire zodiac. So the last time Uranus was in Gemini was World War II. And it's going to do the same thing that it's doing this year, where it's going to enter into Uranus or into Gemini and then retrograde back into Taurus and then enter into Gemini for like the 7 year span that it will be there.
Mm-hmm.
And every time that we've done that, we've gotten involved in, like, when World War II, when it first entered into Gemini, that's when we entered World War II, is when our USS Gear ship got attacked, and we decided to become much more active and aggressive in the Atlantic, defending our ships with the Navy. A month later, we joined the war officially. And then
Mm.
all through World War II, all through Uranus and Gemini, those two were connected. And Uranus was still in Gemini when World War II ended, but that also was the start of the Cold War. And so we were involved with that conflict for a long time. And, you know, part of the technological advances too, like Uranus does rule that. So in World War II, that was the atomic bombs that we created. Very Marshall, very
Mm-hmm.
Uranus. Like that's just
Mm-hmm.
literal horrific explosions. But there was also rise in other computer technologies we were using to like break German codes, and so positive parts of like advancement of communication. But the war part is just, it just bothered me, because then just 84 years before that, in the 1800s, was when we were in the Civil War. And the same thing happened was when Uranus first dipped into Gemini, and then right when it was retrograding out was when we had the Lincoln Douglas debates, which was Lincoln's sort of rise to presidency, but also the challenge over slavery and theoretical debates around should we have slave states or should we not. We were expanding Western, and we were trying to decide if these new states we were stealing from the Native Americans uh,
Right.
should be slave states or not. And then Uranus retrograde back into Taurus, and then when it re-entered Gemini, it was the entirety of the American Civil War. So,
Mm.
I mean, we're a young country, and we really only have those two examples because 84 years before that was when we were created. But we were created during the founding or the finish of the Revolutionary War. So, like,
Yeah, that's
I,
yeah.
I
I
mean,
mean,
there's just go
oh, go ahead.
ahead.
I was just gonna say it really does put it into perspective of like how young we
Right.
are. Yeah.
We are a
Um,
really young country,
mm-hmm.
and we've only really had two Uranus returns. This will be our third, and the last two have always coincided with a war. Like
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I just think that that's just one of the main significations. So that's my piece on American history.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I feel like we can all expect some like war themes to come up, and I think we're already seeing like some of that, like you
Yeah,
said, like with the previously when we had ingress into Gemini and then went back into Taurus and then went back into Gemini was like the full start. And I feel like we're starting to see some of that now
yeah,
with the stuff happening with Iran. Like we don't know the
yeah.
full picture yet, but we're definitely
The
starting
tensions
to
are there.
see, yeah, we're
Yeah.
starting to see some political tension rising. So yeah, that will definitely be something to like look out for as, Gemini transits through, I mean, Uranus transits through Gemini. We do have 7 years there, so it's going to be there until 2033. And I think in 2032 it actually goes into Cancer, but then it
Yeah,
will
and then
like
it will
retrograde back. Yeah.
Yep. Yep, it
Um,
does that thing. So it is like an 8 year progress. But yeah,
yeah.
it is. It's something to really like I just think with everything else we have going on because I do wonder how different this will be though, because we went through our Pluto return, which we haven't done, you know.
Right.
That takes 200 and something years and 60 something. I don't remember, don't quote me on that. Um
I don't know.
we went through our Pluto return and it's still kind of activated because Pluto's going to retrograde like to zero Aquarius and be very close to our natal Pluto of 28 Capricorn. And we are also going through our Jupiter return. Like, I don't know. I'm just
Yeah, there's a lot of like initial themes of like when we were created,
right.
right? Yeah. I could definitely see that. I mean, it too, like even the way that people speak is like, you know, we speak that we're like mad about past events that happened, which is totally like obviously that's reasonable. Like that we were
Right.
mad that like the land was stolen and how people were treated and things like that. But a lot of that stuff is like still very
It's,
relevant conversations that we're having today.
yeah.
And I think it's because we're seeing some of those returns. It's like the returns of those ideas, of the creation point.
That we were literally founded upon stolen land, founded upon wars and revolutions. And like, of course, that, yeah, the piece is really coming back
Yeah,
so
coming
much
back together.
louder.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, on like separately from war, I just took like some notes, like if we didn't want to focus entirely on what was happening with US history, like if we wanted to look at Gemini from like a broader lens. Or Uranus and Gemini from a broader lens. There was also like a lot of technological innovations and breakthroughs in science. We had some changes in trade and travel infrastructure too. So I just took a couple of notes about like some things that happened back in 1606 to 1613. Uranus was in Gemini, and this was when the scientific revolution began. The telescope was also invented, which was pretty interesting because,
That's
like,
how Uranus was discovered too,
right,
because
yeah.
it's not, yeah, visible. Yeah.
Mm-mm. Yeah, so we had that. We have the first newspaper published in Germany in 1605.
Mm.
Gemini really rules like communication and information. So that is like super interesting that we would see like a massive change in how information is spread. 1774 through 1781, was in Gemini with Pluto and Aquarius, which is like the same concoction that we're having right now. And this was the transition between the Age of Enlightenment and the Industrial Revolution. And Maddie also noted here we had the French Revolution at that time.
Right. And
In eight,
America was founded. Go ahead.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. There we have it. Yeah. In 1859, Charles Darwin published The Origin of Species. let's see what else. The first comet was photographed in 1858, and that happened on
Wow.
the day that Uranus entered Gemini. So, yeah, there was just like a bunch of new scientific things that happened. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see some like advancements in science. And I think I didn't note it here, and I don't think Maddie you brought it up either, but you told me about it before. When Uranus was in Gemini at one point, there was like the penicillin invention, right?
Oh yeah, during the World War II, penicillin became mass produced in 1944 when Uranus was Gemini, right? So like dispersing sort of medicine maybe. And I don't know, I do think a lot of the themes seem to be around like communication with the Gemini, but also like dispersing more information. Like, hey, this penicillin will help you treat these infections, staph infections. Like, like
Right.
it was
Yeah.
because it was penicillin was already in use, but it wasn't mass produced. And
Produced.
so
Yeah.
like that constant shakeup of like just our inventions and being used on a larger scale. Um,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
interesting. It's like, yeah, like dispersing it in some way.
right.
Making it
Taking
like
some
available more to the public. Yeah.
right, taking something that's small, which is very Gemini, like, oh, it's
Right.
fact, and then you're honest, like, okay, now it's all everyone's gonna know about it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So it'd be interesting to see. We got 7 years with it here. So a
Yeah,
lot to know from and grow from. But
yeah.
yep, Uranus is like
It
big shakeups in these themes that we talked about. So go ahead, Maddie.
No, I was just gonna say, like, it will return to Taurus on November 8th and then be
Right.
back for good in April 2026. But this is where you could start looking in your own chart. Uranus was in Taurus from the last 7 years. It was only like 7 years in Taurus, so like 2018 through to
Mm-hmm.
now. And like what changed in that house for you? Like what shifted? Like it was Taurus, obviously, like I said before, it's my job. I changed careers like 20 times, not kidding. Like I went through like so many different jobs, like, and I went through very different industries, like
As
throughout
one
those a year,
would. Yeah.
right?
I mean,
And
yeah.
so like I tried everything when Uranus was in Taurus, and change so much. So like you want to kind of have that reflection and then we'll kind of help you project that into the next 8 years of Gemini. Like what could be shifting for you, changing and like just it becomes more unstable is what I was noting when I was reflecting on this was that like wherever Uranus is in that chart is a place where instability is the main factor. So it's like this is not now going to be consistent. And, Gemini is a mutable air sign, never necessarily was, but that makes me nervous because it's almost like extra instability. Like Taurus is a very stable sign, and that place having to deal with instability there was challenging. But like some place where instability is kind of embraced, it's
Welcomed.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like gets chaotic.
Mm, interesting. Yeah. Well, Taurus, like if anybody has like major Taurus placements, they should feel a little bit more stable because like you said, like
Right.
it's been like challenging their stability and Taurus energy does not like that. So, until at least it retrogrades back, you should be experiencing like a little bit of reprieve of challenges related to stability for those
Right.
major Taurus
Wherever.
placements. Yeah, I was
Yeah, I
trying to
think Taurus is
see
going to feel better.
for
What?
sure. I was trying to see in my chart, like when did it, so it looks like it ingressed in 2017.
For the first time.
Yeah, I think I was like, I broke away from like a major partnership, I think. And then I think I did have definitely like I became pregnant within that time frame, so I had like changes within my body and stuff like that. And when you go from pregnant to or from not pregnant to not pregnant, it's like your body changes 8 billion times. So it's like
Right.
um that is like super on par. So yeah, it's interesting. Like, yeah, like Maddie said, just go back and reflect on like what those 7 years were for you. It'll give you like indications about like what does that house mean for you. And then I think it'll be nice to kind of like experience what it's like when Uranus is not there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm excited for that, honestly, because I really didn't start seriously getting into astrology until I did a little bit with Uranus and Aries, and like 2016 was when I started, but then I got really serious about it, honestly, when Uranus entered Taurus. And now that I've been through all of Uranus, I've been studying astrology for like 7 years now, and now that I've like been through all of that, I'm interested to see how Taurus feels knowing without Uranus there, especially for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. I think you'll like because as somebody that has like Taurus in the 10th, like you need your career to have some sort of like stability, you know?
Right. And it
Yeah.
hasn't.
Yeah. So I think like it'll be nice to like have that be like, okay, I don't have to like constantly worry that the rug's gonna be pulled out from under me or like I gotta change directions in some way.
Well, it was always me pulling the rug out, but yeah,
Of
exactly.
pulling it out from under yourself then.
Yeah. It was always my decision to do that, but I have no
Right, right. I
regrets.
get that. Yeah.
So
Um,
yeah,
yeah, and then
that's
go ahead.
I was just gonna say that's our big last like major outer planet shift for this year.
Yeah, and then we wrap up. Let me see if I can get it. It's on the 10th actually.
Hmm.
The degrees are not too bad, so I'm just gonna keep it here.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, with our full moon in Capricorn.
Mm.
So we will be obviously in Cancer season, and whenever we're in a sun sign season, we experience the opposite of that as a full moon. So there's gonna be definitely some themes coming up with like our maybe like, Cancer is like the home, right? And it's like how we
Hmm.
exist in our home space and what are we nurtured by and, what makes us feel like cozy and taken care of. And Capricorn is, the opposite energy. It's more like cool and very like get down to business. Like we don't need to focus on the home as much. We're going to take care of what needs to be taken care of. So with our full moon happening here, you might be like reflecting on like longer term goals, ruled by Saturn and Aries. We're going to be reflecting on that Aries, like that Saturn and Aries point a little bit more. So, it's like maybe feeling like you want those longer term goals to be here sooner than they are, or like projecting what those longer term goals are going to be. Just a very like Saturnian focus of like, what's our projected growth in the future. Unfortunately, like Capricorn energy always wants to see like an ROI. They want to
Yeah.
know like, what's going to happen down the line. So we might all find ourselves like falling into that to some degree. Yeah, Maddie, what do you think?
Yeah, this full moon's always, I don't enjoy it, just because the moon's like detriment
Right,
position more.
right.
And then the sun over in Cancer, there's always this weird like dichotomy with the moon ruling the sun as well during this full moon.
Yeah, they're like
But
in opposite places. Yeah.
yeah, and it really are. And like, but in this full moon, it's like almost the extreme oppositions because you have Cancer, the Cancer area of your chart, in a really beautiful place with Jupiter there, at least. And now that we're past the square from Saturn, it's a little bit more, probably, hopefully, more ease there too. And then, the Capricorn Saturn rule sign is like terrible because not terrible, but it's rough. It's going through some things with Saturn and
And
Aries and its
Aries, yeah.
fall. So it's like it really highlights, I feel like for this full moon, really highlights what is good and what is terrible in your life, or like what is going well, and then what is just not there, what is not happening the way it needs to be happening, and like where there's just like this polarizing effect of
Polarization,
like,
yeah.
yeah, of like this is beautiful, but like I don't know how to bring this over here. And like you can't.
Mhm.
And so it's like you almost have to accept these two parts of your life being at odds with one another.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting too because it's like, it is Cancer season. Like, it's like time for us
Right.
to focus on like Cancerian things, but it's like that Capricorn part of our part maybe still very much exists and we still very much want to nurture it and take care of it. But it's like, it's not the season for that and it's like not the time for that. But we might still have like feelings of like, but I want this thing over here to be better, you know?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I do think we are because I mean, just the energy in Aries it is like you got Saturn and Neptune there, like there is this prominent pull to it. And it's like you want it to also be good because you feel like, oh, Jupiter in Cancer can fix everything, but it can't. And so, yeah, I don't know. I
Can
think it's
fix
really
the
just
things
gonna,
that it's in. Yeah, go ahead.
right. It can only fix the things it can control. I just feel like this full moon is really gonna highlight what is not working, like what is not happening very well for you. And that's okay. But it's more of like that awareness and maybe, yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say it's bringing up like, with the moon here, it's bringing up like those Saturn ruled places in your chart,
Yeah.
and what's going on with them. And because Saturn is in Aries, like in not a great place, like we are like understanding, like, okay, like these areas in my chart are like not alive and thriving at the moment.
Oh,
Yeah,
God. I
unfortunately.
don't know. I feel for myself. Like I really feel like my Saturn Aries and my chart are not doing well at all.
Oh,
And
yeah, me neither. Yeah.
and
Yeah,
it's like
like our Saturn ruled houses have not been doing well for a while, I feel.
no, no, because we were
Yeah.
going through our Saturn return. So like of
Mm-hmm.
course they weren't going well then. And then Saturn just enters Aries and you're like, oh, okay, there's no more help here either.
I know, I know. I'm hoping I always reflect or like think about it. I'm like, I hope it gets better when Saturn enters into Taurus, but
No, this
uh,
is angular in our charts.
yeah, well, it's never getting better, unfortunately.
It's just Saturn. You just have to constantly deal with the Saturn, that annoying
Yeah.
section. But
Oh,
no,
it's
I
so
think
annoying.
thinking in Aries, it's probably the worst it's going to get, like the hardest it's going to be to work with. And it's harder with Neptune. Neptune makes it harder to work. Neptune brings in confusion and makes it seem
I
like
know.
it's a
Yeah,
mess.
I know. I know. Yeah, I've definitely been experiencing some of that, but I honestly, like I said, I don't have high expectations for my Saturn ruled houses anymore. I'm like, I like, like maybe at some point, because Saturn is such like the test of time. So it really like puts you through like all this crap until you like finally reach the peak. And my therapist said something the other day. She was like, like maybe like other people, like she was like, maybe you're climbing this mountain that's like Mount Everest, right? And maybe
Hmm.
like other people are climbing like the Great Smoky Mountains. So it's like not as big. And she was like, so, but that's very much like Saturn, like Saturn
Yeah.
is climbing Mount Everest when the rest of the parts of your chart are like, climbing these like little summits, so
Yeah. And going sledding down little hills and stuff and having
right.
fun.
Yeah, Saturn's like you got to get all the gear. You can like barely breathe up there. And you're like have to do
Right.
like months of training beforehand. And then when you get there, you almost die. It's it's rough.
And then you got to go all the way back down.
I know. Yeah, your food runs out. It's all this stuff. So anywho, but yeah, that I think that reflection point will come up with like realizing like, wow, Saturn really like puts you through it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we can all have compassion for that in some way. We're all
Right.
experiencing it to some degree.
For sure. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think I just, yeah, I don't know. This full moon will be, I don't think it's going to be anything crazy, but I think it's just going to really highlight in your lives like, hey, this is going well and this is not. This is the
Right,
part that
right.
it's not.
Yeah, for
And
sure. Yeah.
so, well,
So, yeah.
survive. You got it.
Yeah. No, we'll get through it. Well, on the flip side of the coin, the Cancer ruled part of your chart is doing
Right.
luscious. So you should be like, I mean, besides probably like let the moon move out of Capricorn. It's probably
Yeah,
gonna
let
feel a
me
little
get out
better.
Capricorn first. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's gonna drag it down. The moon in Capricorn is gonna drag the Cancer side down for a little bit during that full moon. Because that's
Right.
where your emotional awareness is gonna be. But in Aquarius, you'll come back.
Yeah, I've been thinking about all the like Cancers who had recent birthdays and they all had like the sun conjunct Jupiter
Hmm.
in their
Yep.
solar return, and I'm like, dang, you got such a good year ahead.
Yeah, yeah. They have
Mhm.
their challenges. They still have Saturn and Aries, though, so squaring that.
True.
So
Oh,
there's still
true.
the yeah, there's
Yeah.
still their challenges they're probably working through.
Yeah.
But all right,
Yeah.
well, this wraps up our week. So if you want more content from us, check out our YouTube and also TikTok and Instagram at Two Girls Talk Transits. Our personal links are down below, and we will see you all next week.
See you next week. Thanks for tuning in.
Bye.